Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and today we're here to review Magnolia Bloom in the Mist for the Nintendo Switch. This review was written by Mitch Vogel for NintendoLab.com and has been adapted into this video by me. A few years ago, developers at Globe and Livewire, which fun fact also developed Harvestella, released a Metroidvania called Ender Lilies Quieters of the Nights to high praise. Combining a heavy atmosphere with tough, Souls-like combat in a dark fantasy world, it stood out as a notably quality addition to a genre that feels like it gets at least one new entry every week. The sequel, Magnolia Bloom in the Mist, is a strong iteration of the predecessor's formula. It's everything a Metroidvania should be, and even if not exactly revolutionary, it executes its vision well. This sequel is set a number of years after Ender Lilies, placing you in the role of Lilac, a young girl who awakens from a long slumber in a strange and decaying world. What's left of society is occupied by two different races, humans and the creepy machine called homunculi. Some homunculi could easily pass as human, while others have much more monstrous or animalistic traits, and all are susceptible to corruption from a mysterious mist called fumes. Luckily, Lilac happens to be an attuner, someone who can directly purify corrupted homunculi, so you set out on a journey to uncover her lost memories and do what you can to set the world straight. Much akin to genre peers such as Hollow Knight, a lot of the story is inferred and pieced together via environmental clues and item descriptions. Some may wish for a more straightforward narrative, but we felt that the developers did a great job of balancing the world building here. The world always feels mysterious, but not to the point of being completely unreliable. The only point against the story, and really this is more of a nitpick, is that it can feel a little too angsty at times. You can only encounter so many NPCs that are either cynical, self-loathing, or utterly depressed before the melancholic atmosphere starts to feel a little too heavy-handed. Still, it's an enjoyable enough narrative that perfectly supports the excellent game design. Gameplay is nothing you haven't seen before, but what it lacks in innovation, it comfortably makes up for in polish. The standard Metroidvania structure is played straight here, tasking you with exploring a sprawling non-linear world stuffed with all kinds of collectibles and upgrades that grant boons to your combat and exploration abilities. While exploration always feels like the main focus, combat notably plays more of a role compared to many genre peers, with a Souls-like tinge to the way you're encouraged to approach each conflict. More on that later. It all comes together impressively well, making for an addictive and rewarding gameplay experience that stands out in this crowded genre. Much of what makes exploration in Magnolia so enjoyable is its focus on mobility and true non-linearity. It's not a game where you can easily get lost, but you're usually given more than one route to follow, granting options if the enemies and bosses of a given area are above your current skill level. Wherever you choose to go, there's always something worthwhile to ferret out, whether a flat upgrade to your health or new relic you can later equip when you find the next checkpoint. Naturally, you acquire more movement abilities as you progress, giving you new ways to traverse obstacles and granting you some additional combat utility. You unlock a double jump and air dash relatively early on, which can be used both to help you reach distant ledges that were once beyond your reach and give you more maneuverability in combat. The combat takes a rather measured approach that favors learning your opponent's moves and waiting for openings to present themselves. Most enemies' eyes will flash red to tip you off that an attack is coming, and you have a wealth of attacks to respond with that can be somewhat stacked to maximize damage. Alongside your typical melee combo, you can also trigger cooldown attacks, lay down some support fire with a ranged attack, and have a hovering satellite nearby that independently dishes out some pain. It all lands right in that sweet spot of feeling suitably challenging without being overly frustrating or discouraging. You have all the tools you need for success, but just mashing and refusing to learn a new boss's attack patterns will almost always result in getting sent back to the last checkpoint. Even outside of boss rooms, common enemies hit hard and can gang up on you if you're not careful, making the push for the next checkpoint fraught with tension as you eye your dwindling potion supply. Character progression is handled by a mixture of RPG-like elements and simple exploration, giving you a decent amount of agency to work out a build. Leveling up from combat will give you simple stat buffs across the board, and you can bolster this by finding more pickups in your travels or donning relics that give you passives on top of minor stat boosts. Considering the limited space for equipable relics, you have to consider your playstyle and what abilities will give you the most utility. Each weapon also has a few different forms. New forms are unlocked through pickups as you explore and defeat bosses, and your favorite forms can then be upgraded to increase your potency. We appreciated the flexibility that this character growth system offers, as it caters to a variety of playstyles without bogging you down with too many distinct options. And part of what makes Ender Magnolia so enjoyable is the attention paid to the various quality of life features that make the gameplay flow much smoother. Backtracking as you gain new powers is a feature of the genre, and Ender Magnolia supports you by allowing quick and generous fast travel and by coloring in areas of the map which you've already fully emptied of secrets. Features such as this may not sound like much of a big deal, but they make it clear that the developers put a lot of thought into the end-user experience and work to reduce or eliminate as many friction points as possible. This is the sort of game that you sit down to play for 15 minutes and then realize an hour has passed, and much of that comes down to its ability to minimize frustration and keep you immersed. As for its visuals, Ender Magnolia reminds us a bit of a grimdark take on Vanillaware's iconic art style seen in games such as Unicorn Overlord. The hand-drawn nature of the cutesy but creepy graphics stands out among genre peers, and though many environments can be a little too similar with all the text and the smoggy decrepit aesthetic, some biomes find colorful and interesting ways of bucking this trend. And perhaps best of all, everything runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second in both docked and handheld. An absolute must for a game that demands this level of precision in combat. And going right along with the dark and sad vibe of the visuals is a soundtrack that equally sounds heavy. The soft piano notes and string present in most tracks maintain an atmosphere of contemplation and mourning as you explore this ruined world. Some other tracks naturally play up the wonderment or ratchet up the energy a bit, but the audio makes it clear that this game isn't meant to have a fun vibe in the same way of something like Guacamole or one of the Shantae games. So, in conclusion, Ender Magnolia is an excellent Metroidvania that exemplifies the best of what the genre has to offer. Its combination of tense combat, interesting world building, and memorable art style makes for a compelling experience that we'd highly suggest to anybody drawn to games such as Hollow Knight or Blasphemous. It's downbeat, but anyone who isn't yet exhausted by Metroidvanias will find a lot of love here. We here at Nintendo Life give Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist for the Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to check out our website nintendolife.com, where you can find reviews like these but in written form. And if you don't want to miss more reviews like these in the future on the channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button, although it might not be as gloomy and sad as this game. Alright, stay safe and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life,